What's going on, folks? We apologize for the technical difficulties. We are back. So I brought up the big trade. Warriors get Dennis Schroder. We get 2 second-round draft picks. That's the main storyline. What does this mean for both teams? Okay, for Golden State, they receive a much-needed piece. This team has been struggling last month of the NBA. They have not. They started out hot. They cooled off. It's just Steph Curry. There's really nobody else that can create their own shot. Wiggins, Kuminga, those guys have been inconsistent. But they bring in Dennis Schroder, who's having a career year for Brooklyn. He brings a level of scoring, a level of playmaking, leadership, and just an overall intensity that I think this Warriors team needs right now. So Dennis can come into that Warriors offense. He can get guys more involved. He can get guys open threes. And the Golden State Warriors are 100% in win now mode with this group of guys. But what's ironic is they could have had Cam Johnson too. They were unwilling to part with Jonathan Kuminga. So the Nets said, if we're not going to get Kuminga, you can't have Cam Johnson. That makes sense. So the Warriors get Dennis Schroder. That's what that means for them. What does this mean for the Brooklyn Nets? Well, it means that they were winning too many games, and a large part of that was because of Dennis Schroder. Dennis Schroder, in his short stint this year, was averaging 18.4 points per game and 6.6 assists per game. He was the reason the Nets were unable to tank. They won too many games, and we'll get into it in a bit, but they needed to get rid of him. He's on an expiring contract. It made sense. You were never going to get first-round value for Schroder. So you unload him for 2 second-rounders and you accelerate the tank. Sean Marks essentially confirmed that in what he wrote, what he said in his quote, once the trade was completed. It's never easy to see one of your own leave, Marks said. But at the same time, looking at the big picture here is what's best for our organization long term. He couldn't say it any more clear, guys. We were winning too many games. Long term, we want to get higher draft picks. So unfortunately, Dennis Schroder was playing too good for us to keep him on this roster. It's a crazy concept to think about. That because this guy was overachieving and having a career year, he needed to go. And it made sense for him instead of Cam Johnson, because I think Cam Johnson, you want to get value for. You want to get the best bang for your buck. You think that a team will be desperate enough to give definitely 1 first-round pick, maybe 2, maybe a first and a young piece. Cam Johnson's been a phenomenal sort of 3-point guy this year. He's been much more than that for the Nets, but he can be a knockdown shooter for your team, decent on defense, can create his own shot. He's proven this year if you need him to. The Nets are going to want to hold on to him a little bit longer and just try to see what kind of value in terms of the best deal that they can get. So I do want to stop for a second, look at some comments. Cliff says Schroder is going to tank the Warriors. Interesting take, Cliff. I don't see him making them worse. I think that Warriors fans got a special one in Dennis Schroder. He's had some ups and downs in his career, but it seems like he's ready to step in and help Curry and Draymond and those guys lead this team. I don't know. I could see him being huge for the Warriors. And he can take some of the load off Curry in that fourth quarter, because Schroeder's been one of the better fourth quarter scorers in this fourth quarter scorers in this NBA season. All right, this next segment I call "Let's Show Some Respect." So I brought up Dennis Schroeder's stats earlier. He's averaging, 18.4 points per game, 6.6 assists per game, shooting 45% from the field, 39% from three. Here are some of his highlights as a Net this season, okay? He beat Milwaukee in the 3rd game of the season, a team with Giannis and Damian Lillard healthy. He put up 29 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and he outplayed Damian Lillard in that game, and the Nets won. He put up 28 points and 14 assists against the Denver Nuggets in a double overtime loss at home. Yes, it was a loss, but the only reason the Nets were in the game is because this guy played pretty much punch for punch with Nikola Jokic, who's a 2-3-time MVP in this league. He beat the Grizzlies twice, and he outplayed Ja Morant for the better part of both games, putting up 33 points and 8 assists in the first game and 20 points and 6 assists in the second game, both wins against the Memphis Grizzlies. He hit a huge three-pointer against the Knicks. It was the go-ahead shot. The Nets were getting their ass kicked all game. Schroder comes up with a huge three down the stretch. Obviously, Jalen Brunson would respond with a three of his own, and the Knicks would go on to win. But that was in a game where no Nets were really doing much. Schroder hit the biggest shot of that game. He outplayed Steph Curry in a win against the Warriors. He put up 31 points, 7 assists, and 5 boards against the team that he's playing for now. So they saw it firsthand. They understand what he can do. I'm not done. There's a few more things on this list. He beat the Phoenix Suns team when they were fully healthy with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, everybody. Put up 29 points against them. And it was overshadowed because Tyrese Martin that day had 30. But Schroder was the one who hit a three late in the fourth. And what did he do? He turned to Kevin Durant and he talked shit. That was the kind of competitor that Dennis Schroder was for this Nets team. It was awesome. It was awesome to watch. And then we're going to get into this a little bit later, but his final moment as a Net, he talked shit to the Grizzlies head coach. And they leaked the audio recently. And the only reason he talked shit to their head coaches was because John Morant was talking shit to Jordy Fernandez at the end of the first half, at the end of the game. At some point, someone on the Nets had to step up and say something and stick up for their guy, and it was Dennis Schroder. And here was the leaked audio of Dennis Schroder's trash-talking Taylor Jenkins. We busted that ass 2 times. Fuck out of here with that shit. Jenkins turns to a ref and says, "You gonna let him fucking talk to me like that?" Schroder, "I'll talk to you just like that." Jenkins, "Fuck you, motherfucker." Schroder, "Hey, Taylor." Awesome. Awesome. I'm so happy they leaked that audio. That was his last moment as a Brooklyn Net. It's insane. He was the vocal leader, the backbone of this Nets team. And while it may have been a short run, I don't think that Nets fans are really ever going to forget Dennis Schroder's run with us. Despite it being during a tanking season, despite us being, 10 and 15 when we traded him, love Dennis Schroder as a competitor, and he's going to go down as one of my, I would say, top 25 Nets. I'd say top 25 Nets of all time. Definitely closer to 25. And to put his tenure into perspective, I took a poll for Nets fans just asking who was the better player, Spencer Dinwiddie or Dennis Schroder. 50.3% said it was Dennis Schroder. 49.7% said Spence. There's about 150 people that voted. Very, very close. But Schroder, and obviously Cam Thomas was the best player on this team when healthy. He has not been healthy. I think Schroder meant more to this team than Cam Johnson, despite Cam Johnson having such a great year with Brooklyn. So that's it for Dennis Schroder as a Net. Loved him. Loved every second of him and Jordy, but this team has to lose games, and they weren't losing quickly enough with Dennis Schroder. Let's get into it. Let's go over the last 2 games. We're going to start with the Monday night just beat down by the Cavaliers in Brooklyn, 130-101. Not going to get into stats here. It's not worth it. This game was over in the first quarter. They outscored Brooklyn 37-17. The Cavaliers did. This game was a walk in the park for a guy like Donovan Mitchell, who only scored 18. It feels like he scored 100. I think everyone in the Cavaliers had a nice day. They had 7 players in double figures, which is insane to think about. Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, I feel like they always perform well against the Nets. LeVert absolutely torched us in the first half. And Kenny Atkinson, who said going into this game, he, getting fired by the Brooklyn Nets was a little added extra motivation whenever he plays us. He could very well be a Coach of the Year candidate at the end of this year. I think it's going to be between him, OKC's guy, maybe you throw in Mazzulla again. But right now, if you had to ask me who my front runner for Coach of the Year was, I think it's Kenny Atkinson. What he's done with this Cleveland team, who now goes to 23-4 on the season, they've just been incredible to watch. Everyone is bought in, and they absolutely just gave it to Brooklyn. We're going to pause for a second in the breakdown of the game analysis. So we're going to say, congrats to the pro tanking crew. This is what you wanted. You wanted the Nets to get killed every single game so you can sit back and say, give us a pick in the lottery. I get it. All right? I get it. Doesn't make it any easier to watch. It's still a nightmare to watch this team just get obliterated like this. And I get it. You want a pick from 1 to 8, 1 to 9, 1 to 10 instead of, the 15th to 25th pick. I get it. But at the same time, this was tough to watch. But this is what you guys wanted, Pro Tanking Crew. And I'm part of the Pro Tanking Crew, but I still liked watching the Nets compete. I'm not going to lie to you. So you remove Dennis Schroder from this team. You remove the heart of this team. There's still no Cam Thomas. The Nets offense is officially broken. Here's what I took away from that Cavs loss from Brooklyn's perspective. Nick Claxton is now non-existent on offense. Okay, nobody can run the pick and roll with him because Ben isn't a shooting threat, and Ben really can't run the pick and roll the way it needs to be ran. So you take away Claxton's lob threat around the rim, you take away a large amount of his offensive game, and all of a sudden he becomes just a bystander on offense. Yesterday, there were multiple times that I saw him in the post with Garland or Donovan Mitchell or a smaller guard on him, and he did not get the ball. You can't do that. You can't do that with your 5 if a 1 is on him in the post. Nobody looks to get him the ball down low, and it makes sense. No Dennis Schroder, no Cam Thomas looking for him. You rarely see Cam Johnson or Ben Simmons looking to get Claxton the ball. That's one takeaway. Number 2, Cam Johnson is the only scoring threat on this team while Cam Thomas is out. It's sad. It's sad to watch. There is no other consistent scoring threat on this team. You saw a guy yesterday in Jalen Wilson trying to get the team going. He ended up with 13 points in 29 minutes, but nobody can really create for themselves. Love Dorian Finney-Smith. Keon Johnson's been a nice story. Obviously, the Tyrese Martin breakout game against the Suns. Those guys can't create. Shake Milton is probably our second best creator off the dribble after Cam Johnson. Think about that. Shake Milton, who wasn't really in the rotation. Some role players that were playing much better in the beginning of the season, but now have regressed to the mean due to different roles on the team, different responsibilities. Keon Johnson, Noah Clowney, Trendon Watford. Those guys have either been hurt, they're coming back from injury, or they just haven't been good enough. I'm talking specifically about Keon Johnson. He has not looked like an NBA starter these last 3 games. And then finally, outside of Cam Johnson and DFS, here's a bright spot. The only, and I say Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith because those were the only starters who played decent yesterday. The 3 role guys I will continue to be impressed with: Jalen Wilson, Shake Milton, and then Day'Ron Sharpe, who's looked decent since coming back from injury. He's a guy who, if I'm a playoff team and I need a backup 5, I might call the Nets and see what they're willing to give up for Day'Ron Sharpe, or what they're willing to get for Day'Ron Sharpe. He might go for 1 second. He might go for 2 seconds. I'm not sure. Jordy Fernandez after this loss, and this is, I don't normally disagree with Jordy, but I kind of had a problem with what he said here. He goes, "It is extremely disappointing in regards to the blowout loss because whoever wears our jersey will fight more than that. And if not, you will not be part of this club." I get what he's saying. Okay, it made sense a few games ago when they lost, but you lose a significant part of your offense, a significant part of your team, your identity, and you get blown out by one of the hottest teams in the league. I think it's a little dramatic to talk about guys not showing fight and you won't be part of this club. I get what he's trying to do, but I just think this is one of those moments where you say, hey, unfortunate what happened. Our team had to adjust after losing our starting point guard. It's going to take some time for Ben to gel with this first unit like that, if he ever gels with the first unit close to what Schroder was doing. But I don't know. I would have liked to see less sort of like killing his team, more acknowledging the situation. That's just me. Still love him. Still think he's an incredible coach, but I think he's got to know, like, hey, maybe take your foot off the pedal in terms of losses in the NBA happen. You are going to get blown out. It's going to happen. It's a long season. But I don't know. That's just me. Would have liked to see him acknowledge the fact that, hey, you just lost a huge part of your team. That's probably why you got blown out by the Cavs. Second game the Nets have played, and this was while Dennis Schroder was still on the team, was the Grizzlies. They lost this game 135 to 119. Look, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. They had already beaten the Grizzlies twice. So on Friday in Memphis, more than likely a healthy Grizzlies team was going to get their revenge. The Grizzlies had 4 guys who scored more than 20. John Morant had 28 and 10 assists, 7 rebounds. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 20.7 rebounds. Desmond Bane had 21 points, 8 assists, and Santi Aldama had 20.6 rebounds. Memphis absolutely dominated this game. They outscored Brooklyn in every single quarter except the third, where Brooklyn outscored them by 1. But this was just a game where we were just overpowered. They out-hustled us. They outplayed us. And if we're not going to match a team like Memphis's effort, we are not going to be in the basketball game. Simple as that. They out-rebounded the Nets by 8. They outscored the Nets in the paint by 26. And they essentially ran Brooklyn out of the arena. Now, we did come out with a really cool highlight from this game. After I mentioned this earlier, but Ja talking shit to Jordy Fernandez at the end of the first half. He hits a big shot, starts talking in his face, and then at the end of the game, he did sort of the same thing. Dennis Schroder sticking up for his coach and talking shit to Taylor Jenkins about how they already beat that ass twice. The Nets are 2-1 on the year against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 18-8. They're one of the best teams in the West, and the Nets have a winning record against them. So I don't want to hear. I mean, listen, Ja can talk shit. That's fine, but Schroder can talk shit to Taylor Jenkins as well. And the way Taylor Jenkins reacted was crazy. Just acted like Jordy said something personal. Like, nah, dude, he's just giving you the facts of the matter. Nets 2, Grizzlies 1. Don't be celebrating after the 1. All right. Real quick, we have some Nets tank updates. So with those losses against the Cavaliers and the Grizzlies, the Nets are now 8th in the lottery, ahead of Detroit by a game, and then they're right behind Philly. The Nets are expected to make more trades before the deadline. Brooklyn has lowered their asking price for Dorian Finney-Smith, who's having kind of an under-the-radar really nice year. He's shooting the 3 at an all-time clip. He hasn't been super healthy, but he's still one of the more versatile defenders in this league. He had that moment I talked about earlier in the year where he guarded Jason Tatum to end regulation and forced him into a difficult shot. I guarantee teams that are looking for solid wing defenders to come in and play that role, Dorian Finney-Smith is perfect, and he can hit the open 3. I mentioned this earlier. Brooklyn's not going to settle for Cam Johnson like they did with Dennis Schroder. So they're going to – I've read conflicting reports. I think if you're Sean Marks, you're going to wait a little bit more to get the right deal with him and just trading him away and settling. That's what I would think. I've read reports that say otherwise, but if Sean Marks is smart, you do not settle for a guy in Cam Johnson who, quite honestly, might never play this good again. Another name to look out for, Day'Ron Sharpe. I mentioned this again. He's garnering interest from a few teams around the league. Look for Day'Ron to possibly be moved before the trade deadline. And then some betting updates. So the Nets are at 10 wins. They're 10-16 on the year. Their over-under was 19.5. The way the Nets started, people thought, oh my God, they're going to absolutely get more than 19.5 wins. Now that the tank has officially started with the Dennis Schroder trade, there are a lot of people out there who don't think they're going to cover that 19.5. I still think they will. I still think they're going to win 21 to 25 games, but it's not crazy to think that they're just going to go on some massive losing streaks. You know, teams like the Bulls, teams like the Clippers, teams that are sort of like in the middle, you know, they're trying to be a play-in team. They're trying to be like that 5 to 8th seed. They're going to absolutely beat the crap out of the Nets. And then the teams 1 to 4 in each division, or I guess out in the East and in the West, they're going to absolutely slaughter the Nets. Then you have teams like the Pistons and them who are still trying to prove themselves. They're going to slaughter the Nets. So I can see the Nets absolutely getting destroyed the rest of the year, but I do think they cover that 19.5. All right. Next segment, before we wrap up, Spen's feedback for the front office and the head coach. So this is specifically for you guys, for Sean Marks and for Jordy Fernandez. Everyone else, you guys can take 5, go away. This is for our GM and the head coach. So number 1, Sean Marks. If this is the route you're going to go with the full tank, which I promise you, a lot of fans are happy about this. More fans are happy than not, I would think. You better get the pick right next year. Whatever pick we have in the lottery, you better fucking nail that pick, and you better fucking nail all those first and second rounders we have as well. You have to make this worth it. You have to be 100% right in the draft. Prove that if you have draft picks, you can build a successful organization and a culture, which you have in small doses in the past, but I'm not looking for those D'Lo, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert Nets. I'm looking for the OKC Thunder of the East. That is what I'm looking for. So Sean Marks, I'm fine going all in for the tank. It's going to suck to watch the Nets get blown out every other game, but get it right. And Jordi Fernandez, the fact that you were able to be competitive for the first third of the season with a bottom 5 roster in the NBA, you can lose every single game from here on out. You are still my coach of the future. You got guys to buy in and play well above their standard in the NBA, or at least what has been their standard. But you've had guys like Keon Johnson, Trendon Watford, Zaire Williams find new heights to their game. Cam Johnson, Dennis Schroder, all these guys have shown instances where they've been way better than advertised because I think of your coaching and the positions that you've put them in to succeed. I said this earlier. I think you got to be able to relax occasionally and not be super mega tough hardo coach after every bad loss. It's the NBA. Losses are going to happen. But overall, you are my coach of the future. I can see you being a coach here for many, many, many years to come. All right, that concludes this episode. Thank you guys. This is episode 209. Again, apologies for the tech difficulties. We'll get that worked out. The Nets' next game is Thursday against the Raptors in Toronto in the 6. And I will see you guys next week. As always, go Nets.